What's poppin', y'all? At one point, one of the darlings of the hip-hop music industry as a whole and the face of independent music, despite what people wanted to say, whether they believed he was independent or not, Chance the Rapper, he was touted as that. He finally declared that he was going to come back with a new album.
In a second. My album coming out next spring. Oh, is that an exclusive? It's cool. There's only like 500 people. Nobody logs in when I'm doing good work.
So, as you guys just heard in the clip, he said new album is coming out next spring. Well, this spring, since it was December that he posted this. I posted this on my Instagram, which you should follow me at helloyassine. This is the first big thing that Chance the Rapper has released or is going to release since the big day. And for those that may be unfamiliar, which I would be surprised considering largely what we talk about on this channel is hip-hop, the big day did not bode well for Chance the Rapper. Commercially speaking, it sold well. I think it did about 100-something K first week. It did end up going number 2 to NF's album, who was significantly less touted in the mainstream, had less opportunities, and was less favored, overall less famous than Chance the Rapper. They both used the same tactics when it came to album sales, whether that be CDs or, at the time, it was bundles, not as much CDs. So after that album, people were clowning him. Hot Shower, I've already said, was like one of the worst songs that I had ever heard. I didn't even know how that made it out the studio. But my personal opinion, I've given it on the album. I actually didn't think it was as bad as other people thought. I thought it was a pretty cool concept. Did I go back and listen to it a lot? No. But the few times that I did listen to it, the week that it dropped, I definitely didn't think it was as bad as everyone else did. Now, the problem with that, though, is it kind of felt like Chance the Rapper's popularity fell off a cliff after that, which is unfortunate because his buildup was insane. I mean, Acid Rap was one of the most beloved albums of the 2010s, and I also look fondly back on that era. Now, Chance the Rapper wasn't even one of my favorite artists at the time. I thought Acid Rap was kind of too out there for me, especially at that age and what I was listening to. I was far more interested in Vic Mensa's Internet Tape. I thought Vic Mensa was better than Chance the Rapper on a personal level. Maybe not necessarily rapping skill, but music, I was like, yo, Vic Mensa is the guy. Now we saw how that turned out. However, he had Acid Rap, then he had this project with like Donnie Trumpet and stuff, and then he had Coloring Book, which some people thought Coloring Book was a step back from Acid Rap, but it had been so many years since Acid Rap, and Coloring Book won a Grammy. I would say Coloring Book overall was a success, but then the big day was a big disaster. No pun intended. So what happened afterwards? A lot of people will say, oh, he's finally coming back. Well, the problem is he's kind of been back. Now, last year, he did a huge festival, and it feels like everything that Chance the Rapper has done since the big day just hasn't gotten the attention that either some people would say it deserves, or in my case, I would say that's even proportional to what he was getting before. And I don't know what changed, because it's not like Chance the Rapper got dropped from a major label, right? I mean, he did separate with his manager. There was a lawsuit there. They were suing each other for different reasons, and I don't know what came of that. It was probably handled behind the scenes. But other than that, he didn't get off a label. So if there was a marketing budget, they would have put it behind him still. So maybe he decided to restructure how he was handling things, because he has released music since then. For example, he released this song called The Return a while ago, but that was kind of like a Christmas song, so we'll skip past that, right? He released the song The Heart and the Tongue with the music video. This was a return to form for Chance the Rapper. I mean, if you're talking about lyrics, if you're talking about good music, if you're talking about a message, that's exactly what that song was. It was an artistic piece overall, even the music video. Then after that, he dropped, also the problem I guess was he canceled the tour too for the big day. He dropped a movie in theaters, I think. It was like the Magnificent Coloring Tour. It was basically following along the Magnificent Coloring Book. So that was a premiere. That was big. Then he had Child of God, which was maybe a year ago or 2 years ago now. It was in 2022. That was a really, really good song too. He had a couple of freestyles in between. I think he even had one with Vic Mensa. He had the song A Bar About a Bar. He had the Joey Badass song was incredible. The one Highs and Lows. I think that was in 2022. That's when he dropped a lot of music in 2022. And then he had this other song called Ya No. 2023, I don't think he dropped anything. And if I recall correctly, they were preparing to make something in 2023. I think that's when they were recording, because Chance's brother slash manager, Taylor Bennett, had posted something publicly on his Instagram where he was saying, yo, who's in LA? I think it was last February or March, because they're recording. They wanted like singers, producers, instrumentalists, and all that. So it's probably when they recorded a lot of this album that's due to come out April of this year, if we're to believe Chance the Rapper. I think it'll always get pushed back, especially when something's this far ahead of time. But they do seem to be on point with things over in his camp. When you're independent, you kind of aren't bloated like the way a major label is. But the thing is, this stuff didn't really get attention. So it wasn't the fact that he was still dropping quote-unquote bad music that wasn't resonating with the fans. The people that listened to it enjoyed it. So why wasn't it hitting? And that's the mystery that I've been trying to figure out ever since. And the thing is, too, he also had this like festival that he threw and this movement in Ghana. I believe he was there with Vic Mensa. I think Vic Mensa got arrested there or bringing shrooms back from there into the U.S. accidentally. So he had some minor issues with that. But I wonder how they're going to roll this out, because I think it's important that not only do fans know that Chance the Rapper is dropping an album, but I think there are a lot of fans, or I would say listeners, right? Because if they're fans of Chance the Rapper and his music, they would have at least kept up to a degree and noticed that he was dropping really good stuff in the past couple of years. But let's say the average hip-hop listener that knows of Chance the Rapper, that has listened to his music in the past, I wonder how they're going to activate that person to not only let them know that Chance the Rapper is dropping a new album, because you got to keep in mind, they have a sour taste in their mouth from the last album. So the likelihood that they're going to be like happy or excited for the new one years later is up in the air. So in order to do that, they've also kind of got to inform people that there have been these 4 or 5 really good singles or loose songs that have dropped, because they're not singles, I guess, since they won't be on the album, that have dropped in the interim. And then if that person goes through that, I think they'll be excited, and it would cleanse this dirty image that they have of Chance the Rapper's music after the big day. So that's going to be a tall order. I wonder how that's going to work. The thing is, the game has changed too, even from when Chance the Rapper was blowing up. If you guys remember, like Sway interviews as a whole on these radio stations were kind of what was really, really effective in a rollout. And that's really not the case anymore. The current rollout is somewhat unorthodox. The artists that are already popular, they either just have a regular drop in terms of they just drop right away and they're like, hey, this Friday, or they drop same day if they're really big. Or in the case of Travis Scott, I thought that was a pretty good rollout, but Travis Scott is so big and has such a big budget that he can have like a multi-month rollout. Not to mention he's been teasing Utopia for years. Chance the Rapper hasn't even announced a name for this album. So this is going to be a tough way to come back. And the worst thing that can happen to this is people not really paying attention and just glossing over it. Because to make noise now is going to be difficult. Will we see Chance the Rapper on a Kai Cenat stream? That's probably one of the best things that can happen for him. Especially if you talk about like freestyling, showing new music. That would be a good way. But other than that, it really makes me think, how can someone who is so beloved and fans enjoyed, they just stop paying attention to? And I don't think it's necessarily his fault. It just makes me look around and say, how much money is being dumped into certain artists just to keep them afloat, not even popular or promoting them, just to make sure that they're constantly in front of us and we're seeing what they put out or what they're doing. Because, you know, you guys know the saying, out of sight, out of mind. And that seems to be the case with what's happened with Chance the Rapper. But I'm looking forward to see how this turns out. I definitely will be checking out the album when it drops. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Have you listened to any of the songs that Chance the Rapper has dropped in the past couple of years? If not, why? So if you haven't heard of it, let me know that. Be like, yo, I didn't even know he dropped. And if you have, let me know what you thought about them or how you found out about them as well. I kind of want to get a good gauge since I feel like this is good market research. Yeah, drop that in the comments. Like and subscribe and hit the notification bell if you enjoyed. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Thank you for watching. Peace.